survival, your opponent's best chance comes down to like one key removal spell or one key counter spell, and Thoughtseize is one of the best ways to make sure that your plan goes ahead without any hitches. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't mind a few green 1-drops. That's really one of the best ways to make a deck like this tick. They're really the most powerful cards in green aside from Survival of the Fittest. So the more of them you have, the better, in my opinion. But if we don't end up with any, then I guess it's no big deal. No, we're finally waiting on me. I had been backing everyone up the whole draft, but okay. Brutalizer Exarch is a perfect card for us. Once again, Planeswalkers are the best cards in Cube in general. They're the most powerful, and they're a little too prevalent. I've still been trying to cut down on them a little bit. So having good, flexible answers to them is one of the best ways to combat their like overpowered nature. And Brutalizer Exarch will be perfect. We can get it with Demonic Tutor and Survival. And the Mastermind is wheeled as I expected, so I'm happy to have that card. Now, if we could just get some 1-drops, I think this deck would be in good shape. I think one more fatty would make the deck a lot faster, because you're that much more likely to have it in your opener. But I'd be content with not getting another large creature for the rest of the draft if I could just have 1-drops instead. And, you know, maybe probably a couple removal spells would be appreciated. We'd pass a Shriekmaw, a Skinrender, a Go for the Throat. So we've had a few bites at that apple, but hopefully it doesn't look like the people on either side of us are in black. So we should get another chance to get a good removal spell, hopefully in the form of a creature that we can tutor up. Verdant Catacombs is perfect. I didn't expect that to wheel, but I'm definitely happy that it did. Our mana is going to need some work. We're going to be looking to go turn 1 Mana Elf, turn 2 Hymn to Torok? Yeah. That dream's a little far off right now, so hopefully it goes a little better. There's a Go for the Throat over basically nothing else. So I would rather have a removal creature if I have the choice, but if I don't have the choice, then I will always play Go for the Throat. Oh wow, yeah. This is just a crime against humanity, basically. I'm definitely hate drafting this, but I'm also just going to take a while to talk about how dumb everyone else must be that this is still in the pack. It shouldn't have gone as late as it did the first time around, and it definitely should never ever wheel. Someone should be in this deck, and someone in every cube draft should be trying to take advantage of upheaval. It is the best finisher. It's the only card that can deal with every single situation. So I'm going to hate draft that, since I have lost more games to upheaval than I care to admit, and I've certainly won more games with upheaval than with anything else. I'm going to take Tattermunch Maniac here because I think 1-drops are more the backbone of the mono red deck than a card like Hellspark Elemental is. And speaking of 1-drops, alright, so it's possible that no one is in mono red, although I haven't seen anything to convince me of that. My personal philosophy on mono red is that you need to start with 1-drops, and if you have less than 5 1-drops, you're building a subpar mono red deck. But some people don't share that philosophy, and will take what they think are better cards over something like Goblin Patrol, even if they don't have that many 1-drops. Hopefully we'll get something sweet in pack 3 here. I'm not really sure what I'm looking for other than the aforementioned 1-drops. Wouldn't mind getting something like a Vengevine. Yeah, Woodfall Primus would be a nice reanimation target. I see we're backed up on my friend Avi. It's a common problem. There's a few of these guys that tend to log jam a little bit. one interesting thing is that we haven't seen, other than Upheaval, which, again, was a serious crime, we haven't seen very many blue cards, so, and this is a common theme in cube drafting, you'll find that people love blue cards. Speaking of blue cards, well, Treachery isn't really a card I want to see, but I don't think I can really afford to hate draft it, especially since we're going to be forming teams after this, so, you know, I might just be passing it to one of my future teammates, which I'm sure they'd be happy about. So I'm just going to take Arbor Elf here. It's exactly what I was looking for. I think it'll make the deck a lot more streamlined and powerful if it's one turn ahead of the competition. I don't really harbor any doubts about that pick. Oh, there we go. So this is always the dream here is to get Recurring Nightmare. I'd say we're pretty lucky to get that. You can't always count on it. I think our deck was fine as is. You know, we built around survival well without needing Recurring Nightmare. On the other hand, Recurring Nightmare just takes that card to a whole nother level. The two just go together really well, and it's always nice when you get cards like Avenger of Zendikar and Mirror Battlesphere, because they intrinsically work well with Recurring Nightmare. You don't need another creature in the yard in order to go off. So it's another reason that you want a lot of mana producers, because the more uses you can get out of your Recurring Nightmare, the better. Here's one of the disadvantages of using Tapped Out, is it's a little hard for me to see what my creature curve is. I'm sure there's some good way to do it. Yeah, that didn't do anything good. Let's see, 1, 2... It's possible that Birthing Pod would be very sweet in our deck. On the other hand, there's not very many people that are interested in a card like Birthing Pod, whereas the other green player is definitely going to be interested in Llanowar Elves. This might be a mistake. It's possible that Birthing Pod is very good in our deck, and I just can't tell. It's a little hard for me to see right now, just because it doesn't lay out the creature curve for you like you get on Magic Online. I don't think that we have a good 3-drop, which is also a problem with green. There just aren't enough good 3-drops in existence, other than Yavimaya Elder. So I'm going to take the Llanowar Elves, and if Birthing Pod wheels, then we'll consider running it, although if we don't get a 3-drop or 2, it won't matter anyway, because I wouldn't be interested in running it without any 3-drops. But if you can go from Bloodghast to some sweet 3-drop, to Masked Admirers, to Deranged Hermit, to Brutalizer Exarch, to Mirror Battlesphere, that's pretty sick. I also wouldn't mind an Overgrown Tomb. I'm not getting greedy, you know, I'm not asking for a Bayou, nothing, you know, I'm trying to keep it conservative, just an Overgrown Tomb would be fine. But I guess I've gotten quite a few gifts this draft. I wish this had been my gift. I enjoy building decks around Upheaval probably more than is healthy. Alright. So, Dark Confidant is always an interesting card. People definitely overvalue it in Cube. It really is more of a red card than a black card. I don't think I need to explain that because I have 7 drops, Dark Confidant's a little dangerous. So, I think the main choice is going to be between Mimic Vat, Horizon Canopy, Rishadan Port, and Mortarpod, which is actually a highly underrated card, and Overwhelming Stampede. I think Mimic Vat's just a little too powerful to pass up, and especially works well with Birthing Pod if it wheels. So we'll see if it comes back. Again, we don't have any 3-drops. Oh, wow. Skull Clamp, eh? Well, Skull Clamp is quite the card. See, what I really want is this Obstinate Balon. I know that sounds funny, or geez, Maelstrom Pulse. Yeah. This... why can't these cards ever be strewn out through different packs, you know? I would take all of these cards. I know it's silly that the card that I really want is Obstinate Baloth, but the mono red deck is so good. It really is the best archetype and anything that you can do to keep yourself from dying to it is time well spent. And at this juncture, I'm pretty bad against the mono red deck. I almost wonder if it's worth taking. There's just no way that you can justify not taking Skull Clamp, though. Yeah, much as it pains me to pass Obstinate Baloth, hopefully it'll wheel. Alright. Well, Indrek Stomp Howler is a great card to have. And Mayor of Averbook is also an interesting one. I haven't gotten to play with this one very much. I've heard from some people that it's good, and from some people that it's pretty underwhelming. I'm going to avoid making any hard decisions and just take another 1-drop. Alright, so we have the option of taking Tarmogoyf, which normally I wouldn't be inclined to take. I'd be more inclined to take Sylvan Library, but since we don't have any shuffle effects, and because, like I said, we're not very good against the aggro deck, I actually think I am going to take Tarmogoyf here. This might be the first time in a long time I've taken Tarmogoyf over a reasonable card. But, well, there's a first time for everything, I guess. Well, that is Sulfuric Vortex. So, if this was Pack 1, I would instantly jump into Mono Red. But since it's not Pack 1, I'm going to have to choose between Bitter Blossom and Maze of Ith. So Bitter Blossom is another card that combos really well with Braids. And Maze of Ith is another card that would help us against aggro decks. Bitter Blossom is also exceptionally powerful against control decks, and it's good with Recurring Nightmare. Again, it's hard for me to tell what cards are going to end up making the final cut, but I think I'm going to take the Bitter Blossom. That might be wrong. Alright. I probably got tunnel visioned at some point and didn't see some sweet mana fixing that I ignored. I'm sure I passed a Godless Shrine or Scrubland or a Savannah at some point. I just didn't notice it. But as is, it looks like the mana is going to be a little loose. I may not even run this on Burial Rites, because black-green mana is so hard to get to work without multiple dual lands. With this pack, I'm just going to Cactus, Rolling Earthquake. Looks like Rats are going to be pretty good against us. Alright, so Terramorphic Expanse. I would like the Liliana Spectre. Again, there's a 3-drop that would have been good with Birthing Pod. Not that that matters now. And it is a sweet card to have with Recurring Nightmare, because it lets you strip their entire hand, but I think mana fixing is just a little too important, and this might let us play that on Burial Rites. Alright, so Silent Spectre it's an interesting card. I think it works a little better as the top end of an aggro deck than it does in a deck like this. Kodama of the North Tree is also interesting. It's best against control decks, although it has its applications against green decks. I think Krosan Tusker might be the choice here, though. It works naturally with our reanimation spells, and although mana fixing on the order of 3 mana is not exactly what we're looking for, I think the synergy with our deck will make up for it. Alright. Well, Mortar Pot is pretty good against us. I'm not worried about Dark Confidant, and I certainly don't want to take it. I think I'll take Mortar Pot. It's a card to bring in against Mono Red, and it ends up being pretty good against us. Ugh. Seeing this Obstinate Baloth makes me very happy. I love having access to a card like that. You never know, maybe we'll get Mind Routed at some point in Mize. We passed a Stupor, so we have outs. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of playables. This is a common problem with this cube, is that you end up with just way more cards than you know what to do with. I'll take up this Persecutor, another card that's good against aggro, although we don't have any good ways to get rid of it other than Recurring Nightmare.